there, it's Kevin with Rogue Deck Builder here with this week's episode of the Tuesday Brewsday. It's going to count as a Tuesday Brewsday because this is where I am having fun with Magic the Gathering. You might have seen the lack of content, especially with deck building. One of the things that has really turned me off is Strixhaven. Strixhaven messed up Historic. So I was having fun with Historic and brewing around with Historic. And man, oh man, did some of the list cards, or not the list cards, the Mystical Archives have just really screwed up Historic, in my opinion. They printed some legacy powerful cards in the format, and it's just, a lot of them are more of the solitaire type cards, Tainted Pact, Looking at You, and I think it's left a bad taste in my mouth for Historic. Standard is still played with Embercleave, it's still played with the Ultimatum. The Yorion is still an issue, Rogue, stuff like that. It's just the same old. So I want to show some brews. I have been working on some Historic decks, but hopefully they'll get a ban list initiated for some of these Mystical Archive cards that I think are they're too powerful for the format. When Strixhaven does this, when they bring in new cards from sets like this and then just throw them in Historic without even thinking of what it will do to their format, I think that's just a bad sign going forward for them being able to regulate or even promote Historic. So anyway, that's another video, another rant for another day. So where am I having fun in Magic? I showed a video not too long ago about our Commander League. So Commander League is where you build a Commander deck out of a set booster box, and then every week you're able to add a pack, and every 3 losses you're able to also add a pack. So what I like about this is it keeps first of all, it's Commander, so it's going to be more balanced as far as players are concerned, skilled versus non-skilled, new versus old, shark versus non-shark. It's going to balance it out. One of the problems with running a local game store is you get the sharks that come in and act like the Friday Night Magic is a pro tour and bring their, tuned modern deck and beat little kids, playing dinosaurs. And then, of course, kids get frustrated, and then it kind of kills the play group. So we've had a lot of success with this, with Commander, but Commander League we've had a lot of success because it's got an easier. I know buying a whole set booster box seems like it's quite the investment, but it still has a barrier of entry that I think is more feasible. And as a store, we'll work with people that might not have the money up front. They can pay for it over time. That way they can get in a league. We just want people playing. Now, first of all, I like Commander League because it mixes kind of the best of both worlds. I used to like Commander a lot, but I think Commander has just gotten out of control with Wizards printing specific cards like I said, Dockside Extortionist. That's a particular card. It feels like you have to have it to play the format now. They are really pushing their Commander decks with these overpowered cards in Commander. And instead of being Commander used to be a format where you played cards that weren't necessarily powerful enough for Standard or just had more of a multiplayer feel. And they were great for like a multiplayer where mana ramp is more of a thing, where you have time to set up. But I think Commander has lost its sight as far as that's concerned now, with just so many degenerate cards and degenerate combos. It's been forever since they banned a card because they've just kind of thrown their hands up in the air and be like, well, whatever, it is what it is. You have this way of having more players to help regulate the play group, or at least if someone tries to build like an obscenely overpowered deck, then everyone can gang up on them. And I get that aspect of Commander, or they encourage people to play within their power levels or have your own play group rules and stuff like that. But as a store, that's kind of hard to police. And every once in a while, well, I wouldn't even say every once in a while. Now it's got to the point, even at my store, that you'll get every week someone coming in with just a really unfair deck, a really unfun deck to play against. And so I've lost my desire to play Commander. However, I am still a limited player at heart. I love limited, and I still love constructed. So these leagues feel like a limited, constructed, where they meet in the middle for the perfect sweet spot, where you get to play with not just bad cards or not just play with stuff that you happen to have, which is like sometimes limited is very frustrating, especially pre-releases when you just get a bad pool, or same thing with draft, where unfortunately you're sitting in between someone that has no clue what signals are, and so you end up with a bad deck there. So this sealed constructed kind of league that we have here, I think, is just the best of both worlds, and it is very, very fun. It also gives you something to look forward to every week, to add a pack and see, oh no, I wonder if this is going to be good for my deck. And this is our third one now that we have done. So we started this off in Commander Legends, And I've showed some decks on this channel before of what I ended up with Commander Legends, and then we did with Kaldheim, and now we did one with Strixhaven. And I think Strixhaven was really fun because the set boosters, I'm glad we chose set boosters. It was by accident because we weren't able to get draft boosters, and so set boosters were the only thing available for us to buy. But set boosters had the list cards, and you could actually get some cards from the list, like here's a Wayfarer Bauble that's from the list, that actually work really well in Commander. And so also you don't get a bunch of commons, so you get as many uncommons as you do commons, and then you get cards from all over the place, which allows you to have more variety of cards that are actually useful in the format. So how we start the league off is you open up a set booster, and then you can build as many Commander decks as you want out of that set booster. I have 2 right now. I have Jadzi and I have Extus. So Extus is my one of the ones I pulled out of my set booster. And this is just such a Kevin card, such a flavorful card. And again, what I like about this league so much is you're playing with cards you would never touch. You would never play some of these cards. There's a card here, for example, called Pillow Drop Warden that is just not good enough for Commander. It's just clunky, slow. But the pace of this game allows you to play cards that are very flavorful, very fun, and have a lot of creativity to set up these synergies or combos that you would never see in regular Commander. So there's my long introduction, 6 minutes introduction to the deck that I built for this Strixhaven Commander being Extus. And next week, or maybe in a couple days, I will show the Jadzi. But Jadzi's absolute cancer. The card it leads to miserable gameplay. So people are already frustrated with Jadzi. Unfortunately, Commander Legends had a couple decks that everyone was frustrated with. I believe pairing the pirate and the guy that creates treasures every time a commander deals damage to an opponent. That was like a frustrating one that people felt was overpowered in the Commander Legends. Can't remember what that pairing was. Someone in the comment section can say. And then last Kaldheim is Bridge. Bridge players. The Bridge was the go-to deck that was just a lot higher power level than the rest of the... Oh, and what is the one that forces everyone to attack each other? That was also Cardur. That was also kind of a frustrating card to play with Kaldheim. So now we have Jadzi, that is the kind of boogeyman of this format. And I'll show you why in my deck tech with Jadzi. That will be for another day. But anyway, here is my current deck. Now, mind you, this is getting upgraded. Maybe I'll give some updates on Extus. I think we're in like week 4 or week 5 now. However many weeks Strixhaven's been out is how long we've been playing this. And we haven't cut down to 4 cards yet. So you're eligible to run 4 of any certain card. We're probably going to cut this down for the next league because set boosters actually give you a wide variety of cards that you're not like... I remember when we opened up Kaldheim with draft boosters, a lot of people would end up like 6 of certain commons, and you'd actually need to play them at first because you just didn't have enough cards in a certain color pairing to make a 100 card deck. So right now we're allowed to run 4 of every card, and then when it goes to 4 weeks left in the league, then we cut down to 4, then 3, then 2, then 1, then 0 because the league's over, and that gives you a good time frame of when that league expires, and then the new league will come in. In this case, it will be Forgotten Realms that will start. I don't think we're going to do one with Modern Horizons because that will be expensive. Anyway, let's get to the deck tech and see what I've been able to build. So I wish I would have recorded this on week 1 to show what I've done and show what I've cut, but I do have my cuts here in another pile that we'll talk about. So first of all, your mana base is going to be a lot of basics. So I'm playing lots and lots and lots of basics here, which also gives it a slower feel than you would have with normal Commander, and also makes you play with cards that are pretty bad that you would never even consider in Commander for mana fixing, which is super, super important. So the lands that help me fix, we got our vaults. So I have been opening up Commander Legends for my pack of the week. So I was able to get a vault. We have an Orzhov Guildgate from Ravnica Allegiance, with the Silverquill Campus, and a couple of the Lorehold Campus, Terraform Expanse, Path of Ancestry, Opal Palace. Typically, we like to open up some Commander Legends because it supports the Commander format a lot more. And then we also have some decent ramp in this deck from the Wayfarer's Bauble being a set or a list card, which helps us fix and ramp. A Orzhov Locket from Ravnica Allegiance, another one from Ravnica Allegiance. So what I did is we do allow theme decks, theme boosters to be opened as a pack. And so I opened up a theme booster of Orzhov. And so they had a couple lockets in there. We have a Commander Sphere. This, of course, look at the, yeah. Like, Kevin, how are you cheating here? That's a card from this was Commander Sphere is just, I have one in Jadzi, so I just went and got an extra card here. so I don't have to re-sleeve and unsleeve every time I play a card. But yeah, this comes out of Commander Legends. We have a letter. Oh, this one actually could have come out from the prize pool. So another thing we do, I guess, that I did not mention is once you get 9 wins. So basically how a game works is that if you're knocked out first, you get 3 losses. You're knocked out second, you get 2 losses. You're knocked out third, you get 1 loss. If you are the last person remaining, you win, you get 3 wins. If you're the second place person, you get 2 wins. And if you're the third place person, you get 1 win. So it's basically mirrored. You're 3-0 or 0-3 if you're first or last, and then 2-1, 1-2 for the other positions. And so once you get 3 losses, you're able to add another pack. Once you get 9 wins, you get a free card. So we do it. First of all, I sell the set boosters at cost for people just to join, just because we want people playing. And then we incentivize it by on Wednesdays, we give out a card from a promo pack that Wizards sends us to give out for organized play. And then B, every time you get 9 wins, you're able to get a random card from the prize pool. And then what's in the prize pool is we open up 1 commander deck of every one of the commander decks from Strixhaven, and we still have all the remaining prize from the last 2 Commander leagues that had the Commander decks from Commander Legends and from Kaldheim. So there are some cool cards from those older sets there you can get out of the prize, which spices things up as well. So that could have been where the Commander Sphere came from. Letter of Acceptance here from Strixhaven, and we have Charcoal Diamond and Fire Diamond, which is, I highly encourage you to start opening up Commander Legend packs. If you're interested in the format we do and try to suggest your local game store, I can send you all of our rules that we do. We used to have things like First Blood. If you're the first person to kill another person, you got an extra point, but it just led to some kind of toxic environments, and what ended up really happening was sniping ended up happening. So people would save other people from dying, so then on their turn they could get the point by killing them, and it led to some kind of situations we don't want repeated. I just put it that way. So anyway, let's go over the creatures in this deck of what we're running. So how to make Extus work in a limited pool, you want ETB effects or die effects for sure. Because how you're going to utilize Extus is definitely this side. The other side can come in handy. It's you can sacrifice creatures to reduce the cost. It's 8 mana. Each player sacrifices a creature, and then you get a 3/6. I still feel it's very weak, comparatively speaking, to the front side. And you don't want to be increasing your commander cost by playing this backside and then going back to your commander zone. I have played the backside, though, because if your opponents throw out, like we do have some players that are playing like Velomachus, Lorehold, as well as Shadricks. There are some people playing some Shadricks. Funny, I have both these in my deck. And if they just hard cast it and it's 1 creature out, then you can cast the backside to get rid of a problematic commander. So that does come in handy every now and again, but you definitely want Extus on this side because this is your value generation. So Extus is whenever you cast or copy this or sorcery spell, you turn a non-legendary creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So I highly suggest that you try to find cards with ETB effects or die effects to get as much value as possible. So to establish this, you also want to be able to get cards in your graveyard. So I was fortunate enough to get a Carrion Feeder. You can see Eternal Masters. I went big on this one. I opened up Eternal Masters, got a Carrion Feeder, and also Viscera Seer from Commander Legends. These have a sacrifice a creature, so it's a great way to put a creature back in the graveyard, so you can rinse and repeat with Extus. These 2 ones are going to be die effects. The Impulsive Pilferer, this one's pretty good because you get a token, a treasure token, which helps you with mana. Extus is incredibly mana intensive, and so this is just a 1-drop that you can start building up treasure tokens to have a big turn. The Encore ends up exiling it, but it is a way to ramp up for a specific turn to then Encore this and then get some treasure tokens out for a future turn. The Eye Twitch is another card that's really, really, really solid. I wish I would have opened up more of these, but when I do cut down to 1, at least I'll have the 1. This is just a learn ability, which is really good because learn are spells, and then spells can then be cast to get back any creature. So it's a really good die effect that can then get a bunch of learn cards out of your sideboard. So sideboard are legal in this format, and so I have all my learn cards off to the side. Got quite a few of them of learn cards of options that you can actually go and grab. A lot of times you just go and grab an Environmental Sciences to help fix and get back a creature from your graveyard. Alrighty, so that is our 1-drop slot. Our 2-drop slot is going to have some looters as well as some fixers. Like this is a good example of a card that would never see playing constructed, even in draft it'd be quite weak. But in this deck, it does what you want to do. I want to be hitting land drops every turn, so Campus Guide putting land on top of my library is not that bad. And then even getting this back from my graveyard to cast it to guarantee I have a land on top of my library is also not that bad. So Campus Guide, kind of a weak card. Of course, I'd rather have a card that puts it directly into my hand. So, what is that? Like the Thopter, or there's one out of Ikoria that can do that. That would be preferable to this card. But for right now, I need to fix. I do have some dual lands, as you saw, but the vast majority of my deck is going to be basic lands, not a lot of mana rocks and stuff to fix. So this is like pseudo-fixing ETB effect that is relevant, and Extus is a very greedy deck, so you do want lands on top. The Pitiless Plunder is another sacrifice card, so this one does have an activation of the sacrifice, but those are super important. Conspiracy Theorist, this one's really cool because it's a looter. You do want to fill your graveyard up, and it allows you to cast the cards that you looted. I got 2 of those. And another card I wish I would open up more of is the Professor of Symbology, which is an Enter the Battlefield turn. So I twitch like card with an ETB effect. So those are 2 drop slots. Now we have some other ones. Like I still like the Venerable Warsinger, even though I'll be talking about this in the kind of the sideboard. Not the sideboard, the cut cards of why I cut particular cards is you don't want things that are competing with what your commander already does. And the Venerable Warsinger to a point is doing this, but it is just super value. There usually is an open opponent. When it deals combat damage to player, you may return to a creature card with mana cost X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, or as the damage dealt by to that player from the Venerable Warsinger. I used to have a lot of pump spells that could be able to get some cards back from my graveyard, like some higher converted mana cost, but typically it's going to get everything we just showed back from our graveyard. And then if we have sacrifice abilities like Viserys here and stuff, it's another way to start recurring ETB effects and die effects. And so I have a foil one as well from the booster box. And then we have 2 Pilgrims, Pilgrim of the Ages, which go get planes every time they enter the battlefield, and this does go into your hand. So it's just strictly, at least better than Campus Guide of filling up your land drops. It's a pretty decent card to have in there. Chump blocks and gets back. The Crow of Dark Tidings, this one's super good because you do want to be filling up your graveyard. So it has an ETB effect of milling 2 cards. I of course would prefer a few other cards that have this type of ability, but it is the best that I have at the moment. And I am going to play this Ministrant of Obligation. I've cut a bunch of the other cards that do this effect, but getting 2 spirits is quite relevant. I kind of want to build spirit decks because Lorehold has a really cool spirit tribal, and I think I do have plenty of them in my pool. This would go in there as well. But see, you find these synergies you'd never find in other formats, which I think is super, super fun of, pairing up cards that would never see pairings any other way. All right, so my four drop slot. I have 1 Pillow Drop Warden. I used to have 3 of these in the deck, I think. I cut them because they're so slow. It is insert a sorcery card from your grave to your hand with a 2 and tap and sacrifice, and you can only activate as a sorcery, which is relevant, so you can't, block and sack. You can't. It's just, there's so much misery with this activate only as a sorcery, and this doesn't have haste. So it's got a cost, it's 4, and there's just a lot of things not going for this Pillow Drop Warden. Super, super slow, but it is very important to get back sorceries. We have lots of ways to get back creatures. Well, our commander just gets back creatures. Getting back sorceries is very, very necessary in this one. I definitely want to open up whatever Anarchist is in one of the master sets, because that'd be perfect. It enters the battlefield, return a sorcery from a graveyard to your hand. Something like that type of ability would be awesome. There is one out of Lorehold, which I'll be showing you. The Bibliotech something Inspector or something, I can't remember what it is, that returns a insert sorcery from your graveyard to the top of your library. But that's double feels bad. It's not card advantage, it goes to the top of your library rather than into your hand, and it has to be in your graveyard rather than searching one up or whatnot. So it's kind of a very awkward card to try to run. This one's awkward too, but it's the best we got. We have some Novice Dissectors. I still have to I have 1, 2, 3 before this. So this would be my 4th and my 5th sacrifice effects. It's 1 to sacrifice. I'd prefer something that didn't have an activated ability, especially or a cost to the ability. And it also says as a sorcery. Those are what it doesn't have those going for it. There are some cool little combos of Novice Dissector, then putting counters on Extus though to then get lethal commander damage in. Or the Venerable Warsinger is a cool combo with the the Dissector, because it can go on any creature. It doesn't have to go on the Dissector, which is kind of cool. So we definitely want that. One of the best cards in this deck is the Oriq Loremage. It's a 3/3 to search your library for a card, put it in your graveyard, then shuffle it. If it's an instant source card, put it also on this counter. You're getting creatures. You're filling up your graveyard with creatures that matter. One of the best creatures we're going to get is going to be this Return Pass Caller. That's usually what I tutor up immediately, because this gets kind of the chain going, which then allows you to just have a lot of fuel for the late game. I do run a Vindictive Vampire just as a die effect to drain opponents. I don't know if this is necessary. I've cut a few of the other cards that were just like good cards, because you want some cards that are just high impact. So we definitely want Vindictive Vampire. Of course, I'd prefer something like a Zulaport Cutthroat or something, but it is like a nice little drain effect that I do find relevant. I cut some other ones like the Mage Hunters, and I'll show you the ones I cut. And we have the Keeper of the Cord. This one's actually pretty good too, because it is keeps up the land drops with at the beginning of each opponent's end step. If that player controls more lands, you search your library for planes, put on the battlefield, and if they have more creatures, you get a 1/1 soldier. So again, it's a good value card. Might as well play it. Alright, on to the 5-drop. This is where stuff gets a little more juicy. We do have this Eyeblight Colors, which I think is worthwhile throwing in the deck, because when it dies, you get 3/1/1 Elf Warrior creature token, so it's got a good die effect, and you mill yourself 3 cards. So really it's the mill that I like it in here, but the double duty with getting 3/1/1s and milling 3 is where we want to be. Quintorius Field Historian. This one's really cool because you get a 3/2 red and white spirit creature token every time a card leaves your graveyard. So basically it's just comboing with this. You get a 3/2 every time this ability triggers. So really good card in this. And we have Shadrick Silverquill. This can be our finisher of when we start, getting the 1/1 tokens from the Keeper, the Eyeblights, all these other stuff. Then we're going to be able to put counters on them, and then hopefully be able to finish off the game. One of the best cards by far in the deck is the Wandering Archaic. This is whenever an opponent casts a spell, you have to pay 2. If not, you copy the instant sorcery spell. And of course that then triggers Extus. So wombo combo there. Very powerful card. We talked about the Return Pass Caller. It returns an instant sorcery from graveyard to your hand. And then we have a why am I having a hard time pronouncing this? Velomachus Lorehold, which is a nice finisher too. Just a lot of value to get more sorceries that triggers off the Extus. You're going to get a lot of value out of this card. And my one and only enchantment here is going to be the Ethereal Absolution. The reason why I'm decided to keep this is just more of a meta type card. Gives all your creatures +1/+1 and all your opponent's creatures -1/+1. Pests are a thing in this format. There are a lot of pests. There are a lot of 1 toughness creatures in this that this just absolutely shuts down. And we have a couple people running the Witherbloom Dragon as their commander. So it's very good to just stop that in its tracks. And this ability to have exiling a card from a graveyard, there are a lot of recursions. There are other Extus decks running around. There are a lot of other decks that do recur. And Ethereal Absolution is exactly what you need to then get rid of those cards, and if they happen to be creature cards, then you get a 1/1 black and white spirit. So very, very good card just as a meta choice, just a solid choice. Not a lot of synergies, but it does work. Let's go on to kind of the other flex spot, or another flex spot card was Icecrown Scepter. This is my rare out of Eternal Masters. That was a pretty cool clutch card because it does copy a spell, which also does trigger off of Extus. These work together, and so there are a lot of instances that we can actually, it has to be an instant with converted mana cost 2 or less, but fortunately we do have 2 or less instants. So first of all, let's go over some of those instances. Battlebrand. This seems like a weird inclusion in here, but it's a cantrip card. So draw a card for 2 mana. And if you have Extus out, it's also returning a creature. And giving a creature Death Touch, first of all, it works with a double strike. Death Touch, double strike is always first strike or double strike is always a good combo. But you can actually, when an opponent attacks into an opponent, you can actually give their creature double strike if they block, or Death Touch, and then you can remove that attacker as well. And so you can actually run this out in a lot of different scenarios. Worst case scenario, you're just paying 2 mana to return a creature and drawing a card. It's a good cantrip type spell. I did have a Revitalize in here, but I think the Battlebrand was just better than Revitalize. So final payments. My theme booster had 3 of them in it. So being able to run 3 final payments is pretty decent. It does double duty in this one. It's our removal of choice, destroy a creature, and instant speed, and then it does allow us to sacrifice a creature, which is super important to get those ETB effects, chugging. So we have an Eye Twitcher, Professor Symbology. It's another way to get some more abilities out of them. I am running a Closing Statement as another instant speed removal spell. Kind of a weird, awkward one, but we do want some removal because there are some threats in this format that are necessary to get rid of. We have the Crackle with Power. This is one of our finishers. So once we have enough mana, we can then mana dump a bunch of Crackle of Power and finish someone off. Zat's Will. This one's also pretty good of creating a bunch of thralls. So you can see it works with like the Ethereal Absolution and any other pump type spells we have. And then each opponent sacrifices a creature with the greatest power, which comes in handy on this one. And then we exile all cards from their graveyard, which is super good as well. I did open up a Demonic Tutor, so that was kind of cool in the set booster. So that was my Mystical Archive Mythic. Corpse Churn. This one's cool. To mill 3 cards, then return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. I like this one because it can actually get back to our legendary creatures. That's one of the loop that is kind of awkward. With Extus can't get legendaries. So Corpse Churn milling 3 is the most important thing. Another removal spell with the Baleful Mastery can get a creature or a planeswalker. These are important. Throw a possibility. So discarding cards, usually creatures, to then drawing cards. And then I believe this does work as additional to cast a spell, you discard a card. So yeah, then the trigger goes on the stack, and then the card is eligible for Extus to get back. So this one's really cool. Thrill. Plume. This one's awesome as another sacrifice ability. You draw a card and lose life. Typically, I don't like draw cards in this because Extus just feels like our draw outlet. But, oh, got another Corpse Churn. Another Plume. Volcanic Torrent, probably the best card in my deck. This card is so good because we are casting a lot of spells when we're ready for this guy, and the cascade then happens, and then it is a board wipe. It does wipe our opponent's board, so I absolutely do like this Volcanic Torrent. Supernatural Stamina. I like this one because it can protect our kind of commander to have it return to the battlefield tapped. ETB effects happen. You get a lot of value off the Supernatural. There are some other cards that I cut, like the Blinding +2/+2 and Hexproof, and there was Professors +1/+1 or Indestructible. They used to be in here, and I cut them because I just thought Supernatural does it better. Or like this one, Ephemerate. Ephemerate's got a cool combo with the Return Pass Caller. This is just such a sweet combo. So really, really cool combination with Ephemerate. Then we have Gift of Estates, helps us, keep ahead of or keep up with our opponents with land drops. And sorry for the camera got bumped here. I think the dog's bumping. Hey, Chloe, get out from underneath there and bumping the camera. Oh, good old Chloe. Then we have Reconstruct History. Again, this was kind of weird because we're going to earn an artifact. That's actually relevant with some of our stuff that sack. Enchantment, instant, sorcery, or planeswalker from your graveyard to hand, then exile it. So basically, this usually is a 2-for-1 that ends up being a 3-for-1 because then it triggers off Extus to get a creature. Then I still do have Revitalize in here. I thought I cut it, but I guess I put it back in because the cantrip is very important. Gain 3 life, draw a card, return a creature from your graveyard to your hand. And then we have these ones. This is pretty good. One of the commons I did get 3 of from the set booster is Thrill of Discovery. You gain 2 life, then you may discard 2 cards if you do draw 3 cards. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like Thrill of Possibility because the card doesn't go in the graveyard until resolution. But this does allow you to discard 2 creatures from your hand. Usually you've already got them back from X's to draw 3 cards. It's pretty good for getting cards in your graveyard, really drawing through your deck and finding what you need. And last but not least, I do have 1 instant speed learn card. I've cut most of the learn ones because this one's good with target creature blocks this turn if able. You can use it on your opponent's turn to make something block, and then you learn. So learn is super important because this is a 2-for-1. It gets 2 creatures back from your graveyard. So that's currently my deck that I've ran. Let me just go over quickly some of the cards I cut. I know this has turned into a very long video, and why I'll give you my reasons of why I've cut them. So first of all, this Dead Revels, pretty self-explanatory because we're already good at returning creatures from our graveyard to our hand. It definitely was an option. The next one is anything that draws. Any instant speed that draws, I feel is so unnecessary because we're already good at drawing cards through Extus, Card Advantage. So the Secret Rendezvous, the Ancient Cravings, the Crushing Disappointment, those I cut. Mana Tithe, it's definitely an option. It's kind of counter spell and draw, creature card. Yes, I get it. I just decided not to run it. It could easily go in the deck. The next kind of group is all of just the damage stuff. Like Heated Debate. We have a Deflecting Palm, which is kind of interesting, but a lot of the commanders weren't killing us by like commander damage per se. They're really grinding us out or draining us. Soulfire, another one that was okay, but I decided to cut it, eliminate, kind of situational. Urza's Rage, Lightning Helix, Lightning Bolt. I had a Mystical Archive one that we sold week 1, so I just replaced it with a regular Lightning Bolt. Shock. That's kind of the category that I think these are definitely fine. They are definitely fine in Extus. They can usually kill something as well as get back a creature. I think at this point they're unnecessary. The next one was like the board wipes. Like these ones also wiped my own board, which was okay. Like Eyebolt Massacre was okay. It kills pests, kills a lot of things. It doesn't kill my commander. The Feast of Secession would kill my commander. So Monarch isn't that important for me. I'm already good at drawing cards, and I don't want to kill my own commander. Crippling Fear, again, I can see this being run. You can see that's a promo. That was one of the promo cards that I got from the week. And same thing with Cry of Carnarium. I don't want to exile my own cards. So those ones I've just decided not to go that route. Next slots that I had in here at one point were Storm cards. So I had 2 Storm cards, one Tendrils of Agony, and the next one was Show of Confidence. They were kind of cool to get back a bunch of creatures for a big turn, but I kind of like the slow grind rather than a one big turn grind, and just doing damage to an opponent and gaining life and then getting back creatures from your graveyard wasn't that relevant. Same thing with Show of Confidence. I ended up cutting both of these. They're definitely options. They definitely have some cool synergies, but I ended up cutting them. Next is any sorcery speed removal. I hate sorcery speed removal, and especially in a multiplayer format. And in this Strixhaven, there was so much of it. Well, first of all, this was from Commander Legends with Iona's Judgment. Silverquill Command, this stupid thing sorcery. Screw this thing. Posterity in Flying was kind of relevant. Return a creature card was not relevant because I'm already good at doing that. Drawing a card is not relevant. And opponent sacrifice a creature at sorcery speed? Yeah, screw that card. Sorcery speed? Why? Why'd it have to be sorcery speed? Same thing with Mage Hunter's Onslaught. Sorcery speed nonsense. I think we're into creatures now. So a bunch of these are creatures that were in my deck but have since been cut. They could definitely go in there. Cascade wasn't that big of a deal. Again, I'm already good at drawing cards. So Flaming Herald, I end up cutting. The Elvish Doomslayer. Also, Flaming Herald is kind of awkward with Extus because Extus goes on the stack. The Cascade spell happens before Extus is out, and they don't get the advantage out of Extus. Doomslayer, okay. Each opponent discards a card. It was a nice little HP effect. I could bring it back in, no problem. Theater of Horrors, another thing I'm already good at drawing cards. The Daggercaster, I had this in here for pests at one point, but I think I just, I don't think pests are going to be the problem. Basilica Bellhaunt, it's very, very similar to Elvish Doomslayer. It does have an ability of discarding a card, but I think I'd actually prefer this one over the Haunt because it's easier to recur. Dragon's Egg, this one was actually a finisher for a while because of having the sacrifice outlets and getting 2/2 flyers over and over and over. But I end up cutting it. See if these Imperious Oligarchs, they're options. They give a 1/1 flyer every time they die. The Wake Dancer, a zombie. You can kind of see those were relevant at one point. Pillar Warden, I think 1 is the right number. You don't ever want to see 2 of these. They're so slow. Radiant Scroll Wielder. This one was pretty decent at first. Not a lot of lifelink stuff that would actually be relevant with our instant sorceries. Did work one game with the Crackle. However, the Radiant Scroll Wielder has, you may cast it by, you still have to pay its mana cost, and then those spells are exiled. It just felt so clunky and slow, and it's not where I wanted to be with this card. I actually had 2 of them. The Pillar Drop Rescuer does already what our commander does, so I cut it, and same thing with Gravedigger. There's another card in there. Helm of the Defector, this was kind of a cool card to sacrifice it on the stack, but we were already good at drawing cards. Palace Sentinels. Monarch is cool, but makes me a target, plus I'm already good at drawing cards. Same thing with the Staunch Throne Guard. Filigree Familiar, same idea. Same thing with Blade Juggler. These were all either considered or once in my deck. The Biblioplex Assistant, that's the card I was talking about earlier. With Instant Sorcery from your graveyard back on top of your library. I can see why you might want this in your deck, because getting back a Demonic Tutor on top of your library is pretty sweet, but every time I seem to have this in my hand, I wouldn't have a spell in my graveyard that was worthwhile to put back on top of my library. Strixhaven Stadium, cut this for 2 reasons. First of all, colorless mana was not what I needed. I needed colored mana. And man, oh man, does this trigger people. I think there's a lot of pest decks going around that have been winning with Strixhaven Stadiums. And when people play Strixhaven Stadium, people go irate and they just kill that player immediately. They just put so much pressure on the Strixhaven. And one of the reasons it was in this deck, yes, it could be a finisher, because I was pretty good at making spirits long term. But I ended up cutting as people would just lose their minds and attack me if I had a Strixhaven Stadium. Fracture. This one's an interesting one because there isn't enough artifacts, enchantments, or planeswalkers currently that are threats. So I want removal that hits creatures. Rip Apart, same thing. Sorcery speed, artifact, enchantment. Not that big of a deal at the moment. I might put them in later on if the pools get better. Expel. Exile target tap creature. There are many times where I'd want to, not have a tap creature. Opponent sacrificing creature, pretty bad in formats that have a lot of pests. This one was a cool card at first. Make your mark, you get a 3/2 for 1 mana, and then you could use this as a combat trick, make your opponent's card kill another one of their opponent's creatures, or if the opponent was attacking and it was blocked, you get a 3/2 and then get a card back from your graveyard. It's neat. It definitely is neat, but it's unnecessary. Defend the Campus. This is where the cut started to get pretty good. Destroying creature with power 4 or greater was good for 4 mana, and this pump was actually relevant with some double strikers in my deck with, flooding the board. But I just felt like I had better stuff. This was a card that I might bring back in. There are a lot more board wipes that tend to be showing up. I know that Zach has a Day of Judgment and a Wrath of God in his pool. And so Make a Stand might be useful, but I'm pretty good at recurring stuff. I feel like that I'm one of the better decks to come back after a board wipe. And so, sure, wipe the board, I'll be fine. Beaming Defiance 2 was in here at once with Hexproof and +2/+2, but it's, I think, again, if my commander dies, it dies. Not that big of a deal. And the last but not least is all the learn spells. I used to like these because they are good 2-for-1s, but they just didn't feel like they did enough. Creating a Pest, Sorcery Speed Removal. I did exile stuff, though. This one was pretty good. 3 damage to target and learn, Sorcery Speed. +3/+1 trample and learn. It's kind of good with double strike at one point. Like, these are all justifiable. First day of class, same thing. There can be some cool combos that are done with first day of class. Then you can recur a bunch of stuff, and especially when it's at 3/2 spirit. However, it was kind of unnecessary. Tapping 2 creatures, kind of unnecessary. And the Guiding Voice. I actually like this one the most because it was just 1 mana. And so it's basically 1 mana, return a creature from a graveyard to your hand, plus learn, get an environmental science, bring back another one, get a land. There was a lot of good synergies there that definitely could work. But I feel like we have enough, like Battlebrand, in my opinion, is just better. An unknown card off the top of your library, I think, is slightly better than a learn card of getting maybe something. I don't know. I feel like all my cards in my deck are more powerful than my learn cards at the moment. So anyway, that's basically my deck. I guess I can show a couple of learn ones. There were some cool ones in here, like Start from Scratch. They have options. Illuminate History is kind of cool to get in here. I do have the Planeswalker one, so if anyone does have a Planeswalker, I can actually, get rid of it. So that's typically what I end up getting is Environmental Science. Look how beat this guy is from getting from my sideboard now. It's all chipped up already because I didn't sleeve this. It's just in my sideboard to grab up. But I don't know. Hope you guys enjoyed this. If you made it till the end of the video, in this long deck tech video of, I think it's pretty valuable seeing as a deck builder. This is still a deck building game, and like I said, it's taking options from a pool and making the best you have. And I'm enjoying Magic more so in that aspect than just crushing Embercleaves into each other. Haven't liked the direction, as you've heard me bitch and complain over and over and over about how the direction of design is just not where I like it. We have just so many haymakers in every format. Rather than having synergy and tit for tat and grinding out your opponents, which is the way I like to play Magic, we just have either resolve a haymaker and win, or your haymaker doesn't resolve and you lose, and it's just not the type of Magic I personally like to play. So this is way more fun. I personally love it. I still like the politics of Commander. I still like the deck building aspect of the limited pool, and it's something that's fresh every format where you really dive into the mechanics of the format, and then you start to add on packs. It's like I identified that, oh, now Orzhov might actually work really well with my commander. Let's pick up an Orzhov. And then we haven't even talked about the Jadzi, which I'll do another deck tech for with Jadzi, which should be a lot more straightforward, but this card is absolutely a powerhouse in this format. I prefer Extus because I feel Extus is more of a Kevin card, but Jadzi is just a powerhouse. Maybe I can get Talmadge to do a couple of his deck tech videos, or Zach to do a couple of his deck tech videos for where they're at with League. But I highly encourage you, talk to your local game store now that we have the COVID restrictions off about setting up this Commander League. It is a blast. And if they can reach out to us, and we can let them know how it works. I'll be back real quick here. I'll show you kind of our scorecards. So this is as simple as it gets here. So we just have our little league there, And there's Kevin here. So you record your wins and losses. So it feels like I'm doing pretty good here with my blocks here. So this is how many promos I've been able to acquire. So I've been able to get 5 cards out of the prize pool. I'm almost there with this next one, and here's my losses. So this is all the booster packs, plus the weeks I've been able to add to my decks. So show the 2 powerhouses here. This is the kind of rivalry we've got going on. So whenever I play against Talmadge, I try to kill him, and he tries to kill me because he's the one that started to fight with me about, I think he was ahead of me at one point with wins, and then now I've got to, oh, we're pretty close actually. Look at that. So losses, oh, I still got him on losses. It looks like he's played more games than I have. Everyone say I can tell Talmadge he's a scrub. And then we got Zach, who hates Commander. And there he is with his little scorecard. So we've got a dozen or so people we're playing. It's pretty active on Wednesdays, our official league night, and then we try to do it on like Saturdays and Thursdays. And whenever we get 4 people to do a pod, we'll throw it together. So having a lot of fun with it. I haven't quit Magic. This is just my Magic experience now. It's something that I enjoy. And again, I highly, highly encourage you to make your own cubes and ways to play Magic. If you're frustrated with Standard, I'm an ex-Standard player, I'm an ex-competitive player, I feel you. And I know a lot of people miss my content of building decks and stuff. I know that it's, even watching some of the bigger YouTubers, it still feels like they're just, slamming Embercleys. I like it when everyone comes up with a new brew deck in Standard, and all it is adventures with, like, the dragon, the gold whatever dragon, that's a brew. You threw in the dragon, cool. It's frustrating though, because it's very, very tough with Standard and Historic, where you have your set cards that are just so much more powerful than the rest of them. But I go on and on and on. We are going to revive a series, or start a series called Rogue Rants, where I'm going to be ranting about the design. I got a good one coming up for you with one of the mechanics that I think fell very short from Zendikar. It was just like, how in the world did they miss this combination that they should have tried to make it actually work, or make it more supported. But anyway, I won't spoil that, and you'll be looking forward to that video for another day. Long video for Tuesday Brewsday. Hope you enjoyed it. This is Kevin with the Rogue Deck Builder. Thanks for watching.